Isolationism to World Power, the United States Foreign Affairs and Imperialism. After temporarily resolving the problems of Reconstruction and industrialization, Americans wanted to expand again. The Civil War put on hold the original manifest destiny that began in the 1840s. But now, as pioneers settled the final remaining western frontiers, expansionists looked yet farther to the west, toward Asia and the Pacific. Leading expansionist Captain Alfred T. Mahan cautioned that the Pacific could be entered and controlled only by vigorous contest. As head of the Naval War College, Mahan believed that America's survival depended upon a strong navy. He argued that having a strong navy would require islands to serve as naval bases. Mahan wrote that it was time for Americans to turn their eyes outward instead of inward only, to seek the welfare of the country. Matthew C. Perry, commander of the United States Naval Forces in the China Seas, was an expansionist. In 1852, he had warned President Fillmore that the British, who had already taken control of Hong Kong and Singapore, would soon control all trade in the area. Perry believed that the United States should take active measures to secure a number of ports of refuge in Japan. President Fillmore agreed with Perry, and in 1853 he ordered the Commodore to open negotiations with the Emperor of Japan. As ships crossed the ocean to trade in Asia, islands in the Pacific became important stops for provisions, coal, and repairs. In the South Pacific, the American Navy negotiated with natives for the rights to build bases on the islands of Midway and Samoa. The Hawaiian Islands, which were closest to the American mainland, had been an important stop for the Pacific Fleet for a long time. Pearl Harbor on the island of Oahu provided one of the most attractive bases in the Pacific. The Kanaka people of Hawaii had been happy living in their traditional idyllic ways, with simple shelters as their homes. Yet mainland Americans were busy building huge plantations, warehouses, railroads, dry docks, banks, hotels, and stores there. Americans soon dominated the island's economy, and they were able to influence its government as well. They created and controlled Hawaii's legislature and cabinet, and they limited the power of the native king there. As the 19th century drew to an end, disputes arose between the Kanaka and those of foreign descent. Hawaii for Hawaiians became the slogan of people who sought to restore the traditional ways of the kingdom. Others called for the annexation of Hawaii by the United States in order for it to become a U.S. territory, for it would eliminate the recent trade restrictions on sugar and revive Hawaii's faltering economy. Secret organizations such as the Annexation Club plotted revolution. During this time of unrest in Hawaii, Queen Liliuokalani assumed the throne when her brother died. She'd already governed the islands during her brother's long absences and was absolutely capable of controlling the government. Like some islanders, she was not happy to have so much American influence there, and she sought to eliminate the influence in the government, and she tried to create a new constitution that would strengthen her traditional monarchy. However, her cabinet refused to cooperate. American residents were outraged. They organized the Committee of Safety and appointed members of the Annexation Club as its leaders. On January 17, 1893, armed members of the committee attacked and took over the government office building, abolishing the monarchy and establishing a temporary government. Sanford B. Dole, an elderly judge, became its president. The Queen's supporters tried to resist the government but were captured. She finally renounced all claim to the throne. In 1896, the election of Republican William McKinley as President of the United States revived Hawaiian hopes for annexation. McKinley, like many Republicans, favored expansionism and welcomed the new annexation treaty. A joint resolution of Congress annexing Hawaii passed both houses, and the islands became American possessions. Now let's look at the Roosevelt corollary. Remember the Monroe Doctrine? It was intended to keep European nations out of Latin America, But the Roosevelt Corollary, put forth by President Theodore Roosevelt in 1904, was used as justification for the United States to intervene in Latin America. One of Teddy Roosevelt's most famous sayings, if not the most famous, was, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." Latin Americans reacted little to the doctrine at first, but as the years passed and the U.S. routinely intervened in the Caribbean and the Central American area, attitudes changed and the U.S. was viewed with increased distrust and often with outright hatred. Now on to Seward's folly. William H. Seward, Secretary of State under Presidents Abraham Lincoln and Andrew Johnson, believed in expansionism. Russia had been interested in selling Alaska for many years, for the territory, in their opinion, seemed to have little value and was remote and hard to defend. An agreement was signed in March of 1867 that transferred Alaska to the United States in return for a payment of $7.2 million, about 2.5 cents per acre, for an area twice the size of Texas. The treaty was ratified by the United States Senate by a single vote. The press criticized portraying the newly acquired wasteland as Seward's Folly, Seward's Icebox, or Johnson's Polar Bear Garden. Only in the 1890s, when gold was discovered in Alaska, did public attitudes begin to change. And you can imagine just how quickly they changed. As with expansion, interest in the Pacific Rim and Asian trade increased. The United States adopted an open-door policy as a way into China. John Hay, Secretary of State, sent letters to all foreign powers and suggested an open-door policy in China, guaranteeing equal trading rights for all and preventing one nation from discriminating against another within its sphere. The nations replied that they liked the concept, but that they could not support or enforce it. Hay's plan had been politely rejected, yet he announced that since all the powers had accepted the open door in principle, the United States considered their agreement final and definitive. As you can see, by the turn of the 20th century, America was on its way to becoming a world power. But with power comes responsibility. How will the United States handle its new role as the major leader in the world? From isolationism to world power, the United